What's up, guys? Brady Figo here, coming at you with a review of the new Between the Buried and Me album, The Blue Nowhere, released last Friday, September 12th. I don't know if I've ever listened to one band so much within like the same month or 2 month long span. I mean, between that discography ranking that I just uploaded in preparation for this review, side note, if you're a fan of BTBM, you should definitely check that out. But between that and between listening to this album over and over these last 6 days now, I feel like it's just all BT Bam taking up my recent music played, and I'm okay with that. Especially revisiting all those albums in preparation for this album with a band like Between the Buried and Me, where their music is so nuanced and their catalog is so dense. It definitely does. It at least did help me feel personally prepared to take this album in. The band, though, they had a lot to prove with this album. For one, they had to prove how well they can function as a four-piece after the departure of guitarist Dusty Waring. That's something that especially kind of had me curious how this album would sound, because one of the most interesting dynamics of BTM's best work, in my opinion, was that two-guitar arrangement. On their best and most beloved albums, like Colors and the Parallax albums and Alaska, some of the most intriguing parts and the most interesting parts thrown through were this kind of two-guitar duel at times, whether it's in the riffing, whether it's in the solos, whether the guitars were kind of playing against each other or playing in sync or kind of switching off. The two-guitar arrangement was always a very important part and a core part of their sound, at least for me. And now with this album, that's gone, because they only have one guitarist now. So that was one thing that I was very intrigued, and I will admit a little bit worried and anxious just to see how this album would sound as a result. And there's also the fact that their last album, Colors 2, got a little bit of a mixed reception among BT Bam fans. I personally thought it was a solid record, but if you're going to put out a sequel to pretty much what is widely acknowledged by the overwhelming majority of your fans as your best album, that is a lot to live up to. And it was a ballsy move for them to do that in the first place. As for me, I was more with the majority on this one, in a sense that I thought it was a solid album, but in terms of being a sequel to Colors, it just didn't hold up. The songs on it, to me, just weren't as epic and as long-winded and as creative as the songs on Colors were. So now they're back with this album, The Blue Nowhere, and the question is, how does it hold up? For my money, it holds up really well. There are multiple songs on here that somehow, I have no idea how, this late into their career, with the amount of shit they've done on all of their albums and their entire discography, there is still somehow multiple songs on this record that sound like the most creative stuff they have done to date. I mean, right out of the gates, the first single and album opener on here, Things We Tell Ourselves in the Dark, is a completely 100% unique song in the BTBM catalog. There's no other song that sounds like this. The song is a super eclectic mix of funk metal with some progressive rock and metal here and there. The extreme metal and metalcore elements are still woven in there pretty well. You got that quirky, like, I think it's like a xylophone. That's what it sounds like to me. That appears throughout the song. That kind of gives the song like an appropriate, I don't know, kind of like whirling roller coaster ride type of feel. Like you're just winding down. I listen to that and I feel like I'm going down like this spiraling staircase. Something I really got a kick out of when I first heard this song is when that chorus hit, and it sounds pretty conventional at first, and I was thinking like, wow, are they going for a straight up like 4/4 chorus on this song? And then it just cuts out that final beat to where it becomes, I guess it would be like a measure of 4/4 and a measure of 7/8, but it's like it's so close to being common time, but then they just take out that one beat to kind of jolt you. I thought that was a very creative choice for the chorus, especially. And another one of the most creative songs on this album is Door Number 3. This song opens right out of the gates with this like galloping blast beat section, which is just so creative. Like I can't think of any other song, period, where those kind of conflicting type sounds, where it's that galloping kind of chunky guitar playing over straight up blast beats. I thought that was a very creative combination. And then the song from there is just infectious, catchy groove, one after the other. There's these twinkling pianos that appear throughout the song that set this colorful backdrop. The vocals in the verses are very dynamic and layered over each other at times. There's just so many different styles going on from Tommy Rogers there. The song to me has one of the best melodic breaks on the entire album. I love that stomping ending groove. This is just, it's a song that, again, is so creative in its execution, which is obviously something BTBAM excels at, but it's amazing hearing them still pull out this much surprises this late into their career. Funny enough, I said in my discography ranking that I think one thing the band could do some further experimenting with that they haven't really done yet is some electronic influence, whether that's some industrial stuff, whether that's some more like EDM type stuff, even, dare I say. I think they could pull that off. And they actually do like hints of that on this album. Not like full force, like I think they could, but they definitely brought that in little sprinkles. Some of these songs are just like seasoned with these kind of electronic flourishes. Like God Terror track 2 has, again, kind of like this slight industrial flair to it, especially in that main riff. That intro in particular gave me some industrial metal vibes, and then again when that main groovy riff kicks in, that definitely gave me those types of vibes yet again. Same with the verses. They kind of have these industrial sound effects in the background over some really technical stripped back drums. These elements give this track a somewhat appropriate dystopian feel. I thought it was really creative how right at the 4:16 mark they actually use just a short little melody from Things We Tell Ourselves in the Dark, the previous track. Yet it also feels like so natural in this song, despite the fact that it's such a different type of song overall. In the middle, there's this really chaotic synthesizer section and these twinkling pianos that follow it. And then at the end, there's a cool bass break that leads into this just absolutely crushing breakdown. This is definitely one of the heaviest tracks on this record. Maybe the song I've been most excited to talk about for this review is the track Absent Thereafter, which is also the second single. This song, it sounds like it was ripped right off of the Colors track list. I would actually argue that this track sounds more like Colors than Colors 2 does. I say that for multiple reasons. For one, the way the song just kind of starts right out of the gate swinging with that quick little drum fill kicking into the music. It's very similar to tracks like Son of Nothing and Answer the Sky that do that off of Colors, how they don't start with this extended intro or this mood setting part. They just get right to the heaviness. This song essentially does that same exact thing very well too. The heaviness contrasting with that soaring melodic chorus section with that solo in the middle, that also came off to me as very Colors. The track's kind of like non-stop roller coaster ride type of atmosphere with the kind of quirky parts shoved in, and then most notably the fact that like a third into the song it breaks into like this really out of left field bluesy rockabilly type section, which then carries into the rest of the song and acts as essentially the driving force for the rest of the song from there. And what I will compliment most about it is that, yeah, it doesn't kick in until about a third in, but when you listen to the song a second time after that, you realize that that part is kind of implied before it really happens, because you get those like quick little lead guitar scale runs spliced into the music. Even in the full-on heavy sections with those fast drums and screams, you actually get some similar melodies being played within the heavier riffs themselves. I absolutely love near the end of the song when the drums get fast again and you get those brass sections kind of adding in that extra accent. And then how the music stops and then they kick back in for that good night final line. That's just fucking awesome. As a BTBAM fan in 2025, what more could you want from the band than this track? Like, this track absolutely blew me away the first time I heard it. And something else that really impressed me on this album is the ending. The double whammy of the emotion-packed title track and the epic, grand, beautifully human. If there is maybe one thing that's been missing from BTBAM's music throughout the years, it's like some actual, like, in-your-face and prominent emotion. Their music has always been very technical and very impressive and very dynamic, but they haven't really tugged on your emotions and your heartstrings. And that's fine, even as someone who isn't emotional, as an emotional listener and likes stuff like that. It hasn't bothered me over the years. That's just not something I really came to them for, I guess. But this title track, Under the Blue Nowhere, is just absolutely packed front to back, dripping with raw emotion. You get that sweeping string intro, and the song from there, even when it kicks into the main music, the melodies themselves take on a very mournful tone. I love the clean guitars that ring in the background of the verses. They bring kind of a retro vibe to the song. As you reach the end of the song, you get some added lead guitar overdubs that are kind of distantly in those final choruses. Tommy lets out this really like climactic climbing high note near the end that I thought was really cool. And then I especially love those pretty much essentially relaxing, clean guitar melodies that close out the song. This song is just absolutely entrancing front to back. And then there's the closer, Beautifully Human, which again is it's such a sweeping, entrancing type of song when it kicks into that main groove and you get those twinkling pianos, just adding again kind of that extra accent. If you listen closely, you could also pick out some distant, like synthetic percussion, I guess would be a good way to put it. Yet the verses of the song almost have like this eerie quality to them that are also, but yet the verses themselves are also really catchy, which is again something the band pulls off really well in general. Just setting a specific mood, but still keeping it hooky and catchy. This song is just such a grand way to end this album. And then the final parts, how it kind of just cuts out, it feels like a logical ending, but it also feels like it's setting the listener up for the album to repeat again. Moving on from that, you have obviously the two long tracks that I kind of skipped over. I do like Slow Paranoia through and through. It does have an appropriate kind of creepy, eerie atmosphere at times, especially in the beginning. Those like pulsating symphonics and strings together that give you that extra kind of punch in that intro section adds a lot of flair to the song. Right at like the 250 mark, you get this part that kicks in where it's like these whimsical pianos and these strings behind it with some actually pretty commanding vocals from Tommy kind of driving that section. Yet you get like these really techie drum parts that end up being spliced in. I thought that was pretty great. Later on, you do get another kind of cool, quiet break section with some synths in the pianos that add to that kind of creepy atmosphere a little bit. I just wish with this song that they leaned into that vibe a little bit more. I think they could have used it in ways that were present throughout the entire song. And Psychomantium does have that like recurring piano line throughout the song that I think is very memorable. There's some blast beats. Overall, this is a really heavy song that I like. The bridge has some really cool grooves in it as well. I do think this one is maybe a little bit long, especially in like the midsection. I think they could have done a little bit of trimming there. But honestly, I think that those are my two only criticisms for this album. And they are in two songs that I still enjoy through and through. I like both interlude tracks on here, which is very rare for me. In general, progressive metalcore is kind of that one kind of genre where I'm a little bit more lenient on interludes. Normally, like in a more conventional mainstream type of metal record, I'd be very critical of them because I'd find them disruptive. But in this type of genre, and in BTBAM's catalog especially, they do use interludes pretty usefully and pretty smoothly to where they add to the overall album. And oftentimes they are used to complement individual tracks and present some ideas before the full song is introduced. Like Pause, how it kind of starts off with the synths and then with the acoustic guitars and delicate vocals. It starts off very calm, but then it gets pretty whimsical and avant-garde near the end, which sets up door number 3 very well, which kind of follows suits in those similar vibes. And same thing with Mirador Uncoil. It's got a bunch of different instruments going on. Again, it's very avant-garde and has some really cool melodies in it. And the screams that come in at the end allow for a really smooth transition into Psychomantium. So I think BTBAM is a band that consistently actually pulls off interludes, which is something I rarely ever say. But yeah, overall, I love this album. I gave it what I call the running test a few days ago, where I go on a run. I'll run like a few miles at a time, and I usually play one specific album through and through. I like running to BTBAM a lot because it's music I could really focus on, to where I don't really pay attention to how much cardiovascular pain I'm in from running in the middle of the day in hot weather. This song passed that test with, no pun intended, flying colors. And this album has this quality that I've missed from BTBAM's recent material. Even albums like Homo Ecliptic and like the Automata albums, which I enjoy. This is probably the first album since Parallax 2 that really feels like a collective like story, and like it's this collection of chronicles. It's almost like listening to this album to me is like reading a book. And every time you put on a new song, every time a new song comes on, it's like you're reading and you're turning the page to a new chapter. I haven't really gotten that vibe from a BTBAM album in quite some time, since Parallax, like I mentioned. So that was really refreshing to hear. This album also brings back a lot of the prominent avant-garde elements that have been somewhat absent from the recent material. It brings back multiple out-of-the-box moments, again, on songs like Absent Thereafter, that just are kind of those moments that you feel like shouldn't work, but the band just makes them work. Not only putting those individual sections in the song, but making the rest of the song actually fit with it. The transitions song to song, not just the interludes, but from full song to full song, are very, very smooth. The band obviously sounds as talented as ever. They honestly, I didn't think I was going to say this, but they sound like they have not missed a step, even though they are now functioning just with one guitarist. So yeah, I'm so happy for the band and their fans. This album exceeded my expectations, if I'm being honest, and I have very, very little criticisms for it. So for all those reasons, I'm going to score it a 28 out of 30. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to hit the subscribe button for more rock and related content and album reviews. Remember to comment your thoughts below on this album, as well as check the description for all of my links. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.